The village lay cradled in a valley, surrounded by misty hills and the faint scent of damp earth. For months, the gray clouds had hung low, heavy with rain, painting the rooftops and streets with silver streaks. Yet today, for the first time in weeks, the sun broke through. Its warm fingers stretched across the worn cottages, glinting on the muddy paths and the tiny streams trickling past the village edges. Birds, cautious at first, began to sing. Children, sensing the rare reprieve, ran barefoot through puddles, splashing water with laughter that rang like bells against the hills. Among them, Amara moved with quiet curiosity, her small feet careful on the uneven ground, her dark eyes reflecting both the sunshine and the lingering melancholy of the past weeks. Amara was only 8, but there was something in her gaze that made her seem older than her years. She noticed the tiniest details, the way a leaf trembled with a raindrop, the ripple of a puddle disturbed by a breeze, the whisper of water trickling along a stone path. To Amara, the world spoke in small murmurs, and she listened. Amara's grandmother, an elderly woman with silver hair braided tightly and skin lined with gentle wisdom, watched her from the porch. She called out softly, "Amara, come sit. There is a story to tell before the festival begins." Amara's face lit up as she ran to her side, settling on the creaking wooden steps. Her grandmother spoke of rain spirits, of clouds that carried memories, of the way words could reach even the smallest drops of water. "Speak kindly, child," she said, her voice low and serious. "For water listens to those who believe." Amara nodded solemnly, the weight of her grandmother's words sinking in. She had always felt a connection to the rain, a pull she couldn't explain. She talked to puddles as if they were old friends, whispered to the streams as if sharing secrets only they could understand. Most people would have laughed, but in the quiet corners of the village, it seemed as though the water truly answered her. Later, as she wandered past the wells and streams near the edge of the village, Amara knelt and spoke softly. "Do you like the sun today?" she asked a small puddle, tilting her head as if expecting a reply. The water shimmered in the sunlight, rippling slightly, almost as if it had nodded. A shiver ran down Amara's spine. She didn't know why the water seemed to respond, only that it always did. Sometimes it was subtle, a ripple, a reflection, but sometimes it felt alive. She tucked the thought away, her heart pounding with both wonder and a quiet unease she could not yet name. The village was alive with preparation. Stalls were being set up, their cloths bright against the muddy streets. Smoke rose from the kitchens as women stirred pots of fragrant food. Children chased each other with ribbons and laughter, their joy defiant against the gray memory of recent storms. Amara helped her grandmother hang small, colorful charms along the wooden beams of their cottage. Each charm swayed in the gentle wind, reflecting the sunlight like tiny prisms. She watched the villagers work, feeling a sense of hope that today, the sun would hold its warmth just a little longer. Her grandmother placed a hand on Amara's shoulder. "It is a good day for beginnings," she whispered, eyes glinting with unspoken understanding. "Enjoy it. But remember, child, nature listens." Amara nodded, the words settling in her chest. Something within her stirred, a tiny flicker of power and mystery she did not yet fully understand. The festival was near, and the village hoped for sunshine, for laughter, for a moment when the clouds would finally lift. But deep in her heart, Amara felt that this day, this last sunny day, was more than it seemed. It was the calm before a rain that might never end. The sun had sunk behind the hills, leaving the village in a soft, golden gloom. Shadows stretched long across the muddy paths, and the air smelled of wet earth and fading warmth. The festival preparations continued, though the laughter had softened, replaced by the quiet hum of anticipation. Amara wandered alone near the edge of the village, where the stream curved around the old willow trees. She felt the familiar tug in her chest, a pull toward the water, a longing she could not explain. She knelt beside a small puddle, cupping the water gently in her hands. "Do you like me here?" she whispered. Her voice was barely audible, blending with the gentle rustle of the willow leaves. I hope you like it." The wind shifted, carrying the faint scent of rain, and the puddles shimmered strangely, reflecting not just the sky but something deeper, darker, and alive. Amara blinked, unsure whether it was her imagination or something else entirely. At first, it was only a soft patter, almost like the trees themselves were listening. But then the sky darkened quickly, clouds rolling in faster than usual, heavier than before. Drops began to fall, lightly at first, tapping the stream and puddles with rhythmic insistence. Amara's heart leapt with excitement, then fear. "I didn't mean to, stay or go." Please, listen," she stammered, her small hands trembling. She had no idea she was speaking aloud, asking the rain to obey. The rain intensified instead of easing. It poured down with sudden force, drumming on the tin roofs, splashing in the streets, rising in frothy streams along the mud. Amara shrank back, awe and terror gripping her at once. She watched the water move as if it were alive, bending and twisting in patterns that made no sense, yet felt deliberate. Her small voice shook. "I didn't mean. I didn't want this." The puddles near her seemed to ripple in answer, quivering as if reflecting her words. Amara realized, with a cold twist in her chest, that it was not the sky alone that had called this rain, it was her. Inside the village, people scrambled. Farmers ran to protect their crops, mothers ushered children into homes, and elders muttered in disbelief. "A curse. Or a blessing," someone whispered, peering at the heavens. Amara watched from the edge of the stream, guilt and fear rising in her chest. Her words, simple and innocent, had summoned a storm she could not control. The puddle she had spoken to rippled violently, and the stream's surface seemed to rise, echoing her panic. Her grandmother emerged from the house, her face pale but calm. "Amara," she called, her voice steady yet urgent. "Come inside, child. You must not speak to the rain tonight." Amara hesitated, staring at the torrent, at the power she had unwittingly unleashed. She felt responsible, small and fragile against the sky's fury and the water she had somehow called forth. Scene 4, Realization of Power. The rain showed no signs of stopping. It streamed into the village streets, filling ruts with muddy water, soaking the festival decorations, and frightening the children who huddled indoors. Amara felt an ache deep in her chest, a sharp, heavy knowledge. Her words had tangible power. She ran her fingers through the stream, feeling the water rise around her hands, almost as if the puddle and the stream were responding to her heartbeat. A shiver ran down her spine as she realized that the rain was not random, it moved with her emotions, her intentions, even her fears. For the first time, Amara understood the gift her grandmother had spoken of in hushed tones, a connection to water that went beyond the ordinary, beyond what anyone else could comprehend. It was both beautiful and terrifying, a responsibility heavier than she could bear alone. Amara stumbled back toward the village, trying to help where she could, but every movement seemed to make the rain surge stronger. She saw a neighbor's roof leaking, children running to avoid the water, elders shouting in panic. The villagers were frightened, some whispering her name with fear, others with awe. Guilt twisted in her stomach. I didn't mean it to happen," she whispered to herself, the rain soaking her hair and clothes. Her small frame shivered, both from cold and dread. She felt trapped between the wonder of her gift and the devastation it had caused. Her grandmother caught up to her, wrapping her arms around Amara's small shoulders. "Your heart is powerful, child," she said, her voice trembling with a mix of worry and pride. "But power must be guided. You are learning, yes, but learning can be dangerous." Amara buried her face in her grandmother's chest, the water dripping down around them. She didn't fully understand yet how or why the rain had obeyed her. All she knew was the weight of responsibility, the knowledge that her words, her feelings, could change the world, perhaps in ways she was not ready for. By nightfall, the rain continued, relentless and thick, reflecting the pale glow of lanterns in the village streets. The festival preparations were abandoned, and the villagers huddled in their homes, whispering about curses, blessings, and the strange, gifted child who had caused it all. Amara sat by the doorway, her small hands pressed together, watching the water flow and swirl around the village. A mixture of fear, wonder, and guilt churned within her. She had spoken to the rain, and the rain had listened, but at what cost? Her grandmother knelt beside her. "Rest now, Amara," she whispered. "Tomorrow, we will learn how to speak, and how to listen." The night settled in, heavy with the endless patter of rain, marking the beginning of a story that would change the village forever. The morning light barely pierced the heavy gray clouds. Streets that had been muddy yesterday were now rivers, flowing relentlessly through the village. Wooden carts were stuck in the muck, and the low stone walls surrounding homes groaned against the swelling water. Villagers emerged cautiously, eyes wide with alarm. Mothers clutched their children, farmers surveyed their ruined fields. The festival preparations lay in ruin, charms torn from beams, stalls half submerged in water, and bright cloths floating down the muddy streams. Amara stood at the edge of the village, soaked to the skin, staring at the destruction with wide, fearful eyes. She wanted to turn and run, but she couldn't tear her gaze from the rising waters. Somewhere in the churning flow, she sensed the echo of her own heartbeat, the strange connection she had begun to understand, now frighteningly real. The village elders gathered in the central square, their voices tight with fear and confusion. "It's a curse," one man muttered, shaking his head. "Surely, only witchcraft could summon such a storm." "Witchcraft," snapped another. "No, it is a blessing. The rain will bring life to the fields once it calms. We must not fear the child who speaks to it." Amara shrank back behind a fence, her small frame quivering. Every word felt like a knife. Some villagers stared at her with suspicion, others with awe, but all of it pressed on her young shoulders. The guilt she felt twisted within her like a storm of its own. She had never asked for this. She had only spoken out of curiosity, and now, her village was drowning in her words. Her grandmother knelt beside her, gripping her hand tightly. "Do not listen to them, child," she whispered. "Listen to yourself. You are learning, and that learning is never easy." Amara fled to the old willow grove near the stream, seeking the quiet she craved. The water flowed faster here, swirling around the roots of the trees. She knelt beside it, pressing her small hands against the surface, feeling the current tug at her fingers. "I didn't want this," she whispered, tears mingling with the rain. I just wanted to talk. I didn't mean to hurt anyone." The stream rippled violently, as if acknowledging her words, yet also responding to the storm in the village. Amara realized that her emotions, the fear, the guilt, the sorrow, were feeding the rain. Each heartbeat, each thought, shaped the water around her. She hugged her knees, shivering in the cold. The world felt enormous and terrifying, and she felt impossibly small. For the first time, she understood the weight of her gift, not as a wonder, but as a burden. From the shadows of the willow grove, a figure approached. He was an elderly man, draped in a simple cloak, his eyes deep and calm despite the chaos. The villagers called him Kofi, a retired rain shaman who had long ago walked the path Amara was only beginning to discover. "You have felt it, haven't you?" he said softly, kneeling beside her. "The rain listens, because it hears you. But it also mirrors what is inside. Your sorrow, your fear, they have awakened it fully." Amara looked up, startled. I didn't know I could make it do this." Kofi nodded, his gaze steady. "That is why I am here. You are learning, child. You have been given something rare, something powerful, and you must understand it before it consumes you, or the village." Amara's chest tightened with fear, but also a flicker of hope. Someone understood, and perhaps could help her navigate the power she could no longer ignore. The village itself was in chaos. Crops lay submerged in muddy water, animals struggled to find dry ground, homes leaked and threatened to collapse. Adults argued fiercely, some pointing at Amara, others pleading for her grandmother's wisdom. Through it all, Amara observed quietly, her heart aching with guilt and sorrow. She could feel every frightened thought and every whispered prayer. The villagers' emotions were like tendrils reaching into her chest, mixing with her own. She realized that controlling the rain was not about commanding it, it was about understanding the currents within herself, and the emotional storms of those around her. Kofi placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "You must look inside," he said. "The rain is not your enemy. It is your mirror. To guide it, you must face what lies within." Amara nodded, trembling. The task seemed impossible, yet the old man's calm presence made her believe, just enough, that she might find the courage to try. That night, as the rain continued to fall relentlessly, Amara returned to the edge of the willow grove. She pressed her palms against the flowing stream, feeling the water's pulse echoing her own. Fear, guilt, loneliness, and sorrow, each stirred the current, making it roar and twist like a living thing. She whispered into the night, "I will try. I will understand, someday." Above her, the clouds rumbled softly, as if listening. And in that moment, Amara knew that the journey ahead would not be simple. To control the rain, to save the village, she would first need to navigate the storm within herself. The rain had not stopped. Night after night, it fell in a relentless rhythm, drumming on rooftops, puddles, and the narrow village streets. Inside her small, dimly lit cottage, Amara pressed her forehead to the cool windowpane, watching the water swirl in the courtyard below. Her small hands trembled as she drew her knees close to her chest. The village slept fitfully under the storm, yet Amara could not rest. Every drop of water felt like a reminder of the chaos she had unintentionally caused. The villagers' fearful whispers echoed in her mind, blending with her own guilt. I just wanted to talk," she whispered to herself, her voice barely audible over the rain. I didn't want this." The room felt suffocating. Even her grandmother's gentle voice, usually a balm to her anxieties, could not reach the hollow ache growing inside her. Amara felt trapped, both by the storm outside and the storm within. As she sat in the dim candlelight, memories surfaced like waves rising from the depths. She remembered her parents' soft laughter around the dinner table, her mother's gentle hand brushing her hair, her father's booming stories that made her chest swell with pride. Then, the world had shifted. A sudden illness had taken them, leaving her in the care of her grandmother. The village had whispered softly, some with sympathy, others with pity. Amara remembered the empty spaces in the house, the cold evenings, and the nights when she had spoken to the dark puddles outside as if they were old friends. Her heart ached with the memory of loss, guilt, and loneliness. She had wanted their warmth, their guidance, and now, she felt her emotions had somehow called the relentless rain, as if the water itself had absorbed her grief and multiplied it. That night, she slept uneasily, drifting into a dream that was more real than any waking moment. She stood in a world of flowing water, the sky a deep gray, the land beneath her feet submerged in waves. The rain spoke in voices soft yet insistent, echoing her own fears, hopes, and regrets. "Why do you cry, child?" the rain asked, swirling around her like a living being. "Why do you fear your own voice?" Amara's small hands reached out, touching the water. Ripples formed in the shape of her parents' faces, smiling, fading, and returning to the endless gray. I am afraid," she whispered. "I don't want to hurt anyone. I don't want to be alone." The rain shimmered, reflecting the rawness of her emotions. Every fear, every sorrow, every fragment of loneliness was mirrored back at her. And in that reflection, she saw the truth. The storm outside was fueled by the storm inside her own heart. When morning came, the rain had not abated. Amara ventured to the willow grove, where Kofi, the retired rain shaman, had once guided her. She knelt by the stream, cupping the water in her palms, willing herself to understand. She tried small experiments, whispering softly, coaxing the water to calm. A leaf floated smoothly for a moment, then the stream surged again. Each attempt reflected her inner turmoil. When fear and guilt dominated, the water roared. When hope or curiosity shone through, the ripples became gentle. Amara realized the water was not disobedient, it was honest. It mirrored her heart. She shivered, both terrified and fascinated. I have to face it. I have to understand myself, she whispered. Days passed in a blur of rain, reflection, and self-discovery. Amara isolated herself further, fearing the power she could unleash unintentionally. She spent hours by streams and puddles, speaking aloud, testing, listening. The water became a confidant, reflecting not just the storm outside, but the storm inside her. One evening, as the rain pounded down, she pressed her palms into the stream and let herself feel the full weight of her grief. She remembered her parents, her loneliness, the villagers' fear, and the guilt she had carried. She allowed herself to cry, unashamed and raw. The water responded, not violently this time, but in gentle, rolling waves, as if it had absorbed her sorrow and softened in return. Amara gasped, realizing the truth. The unending rain had not been a punishment or a random act, it had been a reflection of her own unresolved emotions. The grief, anger, and isolation within her heart had fueled it, magnifying itself in the world outside. Tears streamed down her face, mingling with the rain, and for the first time, she felt a fragile spark of hope. She could influence the rain, but only if she faced her own inner storms, if she accepted and understood the depth of her feelings rather than trying to suppress them. Amara leaned back against the willow tree, exhausted but enlightened. She whispered into the night, her voice calm yet filled with wonder, I understand now. The rain listens, because it is me, and I am it. I will learn. I will not hide. I will try to guide it with my heart, not my fear. The water in the stream shimmered, reflecting her image and rippling gently, a soft mirror of her emotions. The storm outside remained, but for the first time, it did not feel chaotic, it felt responsive, alive, and capable of change. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory, nature listens to those who believe, and to those who understand. Amara smiled faintly, the heaviness in her chest easing slightly. The journey ahead would be long and difficult, but she now knew the first step. She must face her own heart, embrace her sorrow, and learn to speak to the rain not in fear, but in understanding. The village slept under the relentless rain, unaware that the storm had begun to shift, not because the clouds had changed, but because a small child, brave enough to face her own heart, had begun to understand the true power within herself. Tomorrow, she would try again. Tomorrow, she would speak not just to the water, but to the emotions that shaped it, and perhaps, finally, begin to guide the rain toward calm. The night had grown wild. Thunder rolled across the valley like a drumbeat, shaking rooftops and rattling windows. The rain fell in sheets, drenching the village and turning paths into rivers. Trees bent beneath the relentless wind, and the streams swelled, carrying debris and mud toward homes. Amara stood at the edge of the willow grove, her small body soaked, hair plastered to her face, and eyes wide with fear. She could feel the storm echoing her own turmoil, fear, guilt, loneliness, all amplified in the roaring deluge. Kofi appeared beside her, calm and steady despite the chaos. It has reached its peak, he said softly, his voice barely audible over the roar. You feel it, don't you? The storm is not just outside, it is inside you as well. Amara swallowed hard. Her chest ached with the weight of responsibility. She had tried to understand, to calm the water, to face her emotions, but tonight, it all seemed overwhelming. I can't control it, she whispered, shivering. I don't know if I can. Kofi nodded, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Control is not what is needed. You must speak to it with honesty, not command. Show it your heart, your sorrow, your hope, your love. Amara and Kofi returned to a small clearing near the stream, where soft moss and gentle ripples of water created a natural circle. Lanterns swayed on low branches, casting flickering light across the soaked ground. Kofi instructed her to kneel by the water and close her eyes, to let her heart guide her words. "Speak, Amara," he said, his voice steady. "Tell the rain how you feel. Do not hold back. Tell it your grief, your fear, your love for the village, for your family, for life itself." Amara nodded, trembling. She pressed her palms against the flowing stream, feeling its pulse, its heartbeat, matching her own. She inhaled deeply, the cold air mixing with the misty spray of rain, and closed her eyes. Her voice was barely a whisper at first. "I am sorry. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I didn't want the village to suffer. I am afraid of what I cannot control. I am lonely, and I miss my parents, and sometimes I feel so small in this world." The water rippled gently, responding to her honesty. She took another breath, her chest tightening as emotion overwhelmed her. "I want to help. I want to learn. I want to make things right. Please, hear me. Hear all that I am." The rain above seemed to pause, as if listening. Then it shifted, falling not in harsh sheets, but in soft, steady streams. The wind softened. The thunder faded to distant rumbles. The water at her hands flowed calmly, mirroring the gentleness in her voice. Amara's eyes opened, wide with wonder. She could feel the storm responding, not to commands or fear, but to understanding. It had mirrored her sorrow and now mirrored her hope. Tears ran down Amara's face, but they were not the tears of despair, they were the tears of release, of recognition, of connection. She understood now, the rain had never been her enemy. It had been a reflection, a mirror of everything she carried inside her heart. Kofi knelt beside her, smiling softly. "You see it now, don't you?" he said. "Power is not in forcing the world to bend. Power is in understanding it, embracing it, guiding it with the truth of your heart." Amara nodded, her small shoulders relaxing. She let her hands rest in the stream, feeling the water respond calmly, reflecting her inner peace. The storm outside was still present, but it was no longer chaotic, it was alive, balanced, and connected to her. For the first time, she felt a sense of harmony. She realized that true control came not from fear or force, but from empathy, honesty, and acceptance. The rain was not hers to command, it was hers to understand and guide. As dawn approached, the storm began to soften. Rain fell in gentle showers, creating silver threads across the village. The wind died down. The streams glimmered in the early light, calm and reflective. Amara sat quietly, soaked but serene. She looked toward the village, where flickers of lantern light hinted at the people who had endured the long night. She felt a new kind of responsibility, not just fear, but care, connection, and hope. Her grandmother's words echoed softly in her mind, "Nature listens to those who believe, and to those who understand." Amara smiled faintly, a fragile strength settling within her. The journey was far from over, but she had crossed a threshold. She had faced the storm inside herself, and in doing so, had begun to heal the storm outside. The village would awaken to a softer world. The damage from the storm remained, but the water no longer felt dangerous, chaotic, or out of control. Amara knew there would be challenges ahead, flooded fields, frightened villagers, and her own ongoing struggle to understand her gift. Yet she also knew something else, the rain was not a punishment. It was a partner, a mirror, a reflection of emotions waiting to be understood. And with courage, empathy, and love, she could guide it, rather than fear it. As the first light of dawn filtered through the clouds, Amara knelt by the stream once more, whispering softly, "Thank you, for listening. I will learn to guide you." The water shimmered, gentle and alive, as if acknowledging her promise. The first rays of sunlight filtered weakly through the lingering gray clouds, casting the village in a soft, golden haze. The rain had lessened to a gentle drizzle, leaving puddles shimmering like tiny mirrors along the streets. Birds cautiously returned, their tentative songs breaking the heavy silence. Amara stepped outside, her small feet sinking slightly into the wet earth. She surveyed the village with a mix of apprehension and hope. Wooden carts lay overturned, crops were flattened in the fields, and the riverbank had crept close to homes. Yet, despite the damage, a sense of calm filled the air. The storm had passed, and in its place came quiet reflection. She knelt beside a puddle, cupping the water in her hands. The gentle flow mirrored her own heartbeat, steady, calm, alive. For the first time in days, she felt a fragile sense of harmony, a belief that the village could recover, and so could she. The villagers emerged cautiously from their homes. Some paused in shock, staring at the soft streams running through the streets, while others whispered, their voices full of awe. "The rain, it's not fierce anymore," an elder murmured. "It feels gentle." Mothers gathered children close, some clutching small offerings to the water as thanks, others crossing themselves quietly. Farmers examined their fields, noting that while much had been damaged, the soil was rich and fertile, ready to renew. And then, the villagers looked toward Amara. At first, there was fear in their eyes, lingering suspicion that the child had caused the chaos. But as they watched the gentle ripples, the calm after the storm, and the serenity in her small posture, understanding began to grow. One farmer approached slowly, holding out a hand. "Child," he said softly, "perhaps your gift is a blessing, not a curse." Amara's chest tightened, relief and fear mingling. She nodded shyly, realizing that she had not only survived the storm within herself but had also helped the village see a new way forward. Her grandmother approached, smiling gently. "You have done well, Amara," she said, placing a hand on the child's shoulder. "Not because you stopped the rain, but because you faced your heart. That is the true gift." Amara smiled faintly, still trembling from the intensity of the past days. She saw her friends, previously frightened, walking toward her, hesitating, and then embracing her with cautious warmth. I was scared," whispered one neighbor. "But now I see, the rain listens to you. And maybe, we can learn from it too." Amara nodded, feeling the weight in her chest lift slightly. The villagers' acceptance, their willingness to forgive and understand, mirrored her own journey. The storm had not only tested her, it had also drawn the village closer, teaching them patience, trust, and empathy. Throughout the day, the villagers worked together, clearing debris, mending fences, and repairing homes. Children splashed in puddles with laughter that rang freely again, unafraid of the water. The streams glimmered alongside them, playful and gentle, reflecting the renewed energy of the community. Amara moved quietly among them, helping where she could. She guided the water in small ways, tilting a stream to water thirsty plants, gently redirecting puddles from the paths, aware of her connection but no longer overwhelmed by it. Kofi watched from the edge of the willow grove, nodding approvingly. "See," he said softly to her grandmother. "She has learned to guide the rain with her heart. She will grow, and so will the village." Amara's grandmother squeezed her hand. "Yes, child. And you will always have us to help you. You are not alone." As the sun rose higher, the village took on a renewed glow. The storm's remnants created a world of reflective water, the fields glistening, rooftops sparkling, and streams dancing lightly across the streets. Amara paused by the central fountain, hands resting on the water. She looked up at the villagers, now busy but smiling, and felt a warmth in her chest. She had faced fear, grief, and guilt, and emerged stronger, aware of the gift that set her apart. "I am part of this," she whispered softly, "and it is part of me. I can guide it, care for it, and let it help us all." For the first time, she felt at peace. The rain was no longer a reflection of sorrow alone, it was a living connection between her heart and the world around her. By evening, the village glowed under the soft light of lanterns. Fires warmed kitchens, laughter returned to the streets, and the gentle drizzle made the earth sparkle like tiny jewels. Amara sat with her grandmother, watching the children play, listening to the soft rush of water in the streams. Her grandmother's voice was soft, almost a whisper. "The rain will come and go, child. But now, it will be part of your story, a story of courage, love, and understanding." Amara smiled, leaning into her grandmother's side. She felt the connection within herself and to the village, a fragile but enduring balance. The storm had passed, yet it had left behind something more enduring: hope, forgiveness, and the knowledge that even the smallest voice could guide the world when spoken from the heart. The village, battered but resilient, began anew. And Amara, no longer afraid of her gift, embraced it fully, ready for whatever the future might bring. The village awoke to a world washed clean. The heavy storm clouds had parted just enough to let soft light spill across the rooftops. The rain had not vanished entirely, it fell in gentle, rhythmic drizzles, painting the streets with shimmering reflections. Puddles glimmered like glass, and the streams sang quietly, weaving through the village as if telling a calm, endless story. Amara walked barefoot along the paths, letting the water lap at her toes. Each step sent ripples dancing outward, catching the morning sun in tiny sparks of light. She smiled faintly, feeling both the weight and the freedom of her gift. She was part of this rain, and the rain was part of her. Scene 2, Village life resumes. Children splashed joyfully in puddles, their laughter echoing across the wet streets. Farmers began to inspect their fields, noting the fresh, rich soil, while villagers exchanged smiles and quiet conversations, sharing news and tidying their homes. Life returned to its rhythm, softened by the presence of the gentle rain. Amara's grandmother watched her from the doorway of their cottage, a proud smile on her face. "The rain listens, Amara," she said softly. "But it will never stop. It is not meant to. It is a reminder of balance, between life, emotion, and nature." Amara nodded, understanding for the first time that the rain was neither a curse nor merely a gift, it was a reflection of connection, a reminder that emotions and the natural world were forever intertwined. Scene 3, Reflective imagery. She paused at the central fountain, watching ripples expand across the water's surface. Children ran past, splashing, shouting, and laughing. Farmers worked with renewed energy, repairing what had been broken. Villagers moved with quiet harmony, guided by the soft cadence of the eternal drizzle. Amara dipped her hands into the fountain, letting the water swirl around her fingers. She felt her heartbeat echo in the ripples, a gentle reminder of the power of listening, of understanding, and of embracing one's emotions fully. Scene 4, Poetic conclusion. The rain would never fully leave the village, but it no longer threatened. It fell softly, persistently, a companion rather than a force to fear. Amara walked through the streets, feeling both responsibility and freedom. Her heart, once heavy with guilt and fear, now carried understanding, love, and quiet pride. And so, the village thrived under the gentle, eternal rain, a world where emotions and nature intertwined, where growth came from understanding rather than control, and where even a small child could guide the world through honesty, courage, and compassion. The water shimmered, the children laughed, and Amara, small but unshakably brave, continued her walk through the village, part of the rain, part of the world, part of a story that would live forever.